Welcome back. In a couple of weeks from now, from the 23rd of September until the 27th, New Zealanders will be adding their support to the millions of people across the world who live below the poverty line. An international campaign called Live Below the Line asks people to take up the challenge of living on a daily budget of just $2.25 a day. And although the campaign only asks for your support for 5 days, millions of people live below that poverty line for much, much longer, often for their entire lives and with no choice in the matter. Campaign organizers hope that by you joining them for those 5 days, it's not only the people in need who will benefit, but also the people who participate, because they'll get a fresh awareness of what living in poverty really means. Oxfam is one of the organizations joining the fundraising campaign, and Mania Clarke went along to their Auckland office to meet up with media spokesman Jason Garman to find out more.
Ngā mihi nui kia koe, Jason. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
And thank you for having me.
Now tell me, when and why was Live Below the Line Challenge established?
Well, Live Below the Line Challenge was originally established overseas, and it came to New Zealand 2 years ago, in 2011. And the idea was to try to provide an opportunity for ordinary people to generate empathy for the people living around the world in extreme poverty, and to do something tangible to help them, to lift them up above that poverty line. And you do that by temporarily, for 5 days, living below the poverty line yourself and getting your friends and family to sponsor you. And that funding then goes to help those people who are living in extreme poverty, to help lift them up above the line.
So how many people around the world live below the line?
Well, the Live Below the Line Challenge here in New Zealand is living on $2.25 per day. And that's the New Zealand dollar equivalent of the extreme poverty line overseas. And there are 1.2 billion people around the world who are living below that line.
How do they cope, and what effect does that have on their families and their children?
Well, obviously it's extremely challenging for them. They don't have the fundamentals, they don't have the basic human rights that we all more or less take for granted. They don't have clean, safe water. They don't have access to a toilet. They don't have the chance to send their children to school oftentimes. And they're subsistence farmers, so they're living day to day, week to week. If there's a drought and their crops don't grow, obviously that's extremely challenging for them. They don't have the kind of safety nets that we have to fall back on. So there are all kinds of implications, from sickness to not being able to see their children thrive in the way that we are able to see our children thrive in a country like New Zealand.
In your travels around the Pacific, how do they survive? How do they manage?
Well, it's different in every country. You know, the actual sort of profile is considerably different in a place like Tonga to a place like Bougainville. But predominantly, people are growing food, and unfortunately, in a lot of cases, they've been convinced to abandon their traditional food crops and growing methods for buying imported foods. So a good example of that would be a country, West Papua, which is part of Indonesia. They have grown a sweet potato that's very similar to kumara for thousands of years. But the Indonesians actually have convinced them to buy imported rice instead of growing their traditional sweet potato. And so Oxfam has a program that is actually reviving that practice of growing their sweet potatoes, which is providing them with a local source of food, and also they're able to sell the extra and get a little bit of money for themselves and not have to rely on generating money and buying imported rice.
So for someone that wants to take part in this, how do they do that?
Well, it's really simple. I'm living below the line for Oxfam. You just go to oxfam.org.nz and click on the Live Below the Line banner. It's a really simple sign-up process. It takes just a couple of minutes. And then the fun starts. That's when you start to tell your friends and your family, hey, I'm going to live below the line for 5 days. And I'm starting to think about what foods I'm going to eat, and I'd really appreciate your support in this endeavor. If you could sponsor me for just a few dollars, then we're going to make a difference together. And I think it's a real opportunity, Live Below the Line, to help myself feel what it feels like to be in their shoes for just a few days. I have had the privilege of traveling to places like Papua New Guinea and Vanuatu, but it's a little bit different being there and actually, you know, trying to say, I'm going to live on $2.25 a day. It's not nearly as hard as they have it, but for me, generating empathy is a very, very powerful thing. It's much different from sympathy, you know. Sympathy is what allows you to say, oh, poor them. Empathy is what motivates you to say, oh, I feel what they're feeling. That's not right, and I'm going to do something about it.
I'm quite keen to take part in it this year, and was wondering if you could give us some tips of how we could work that out practically. Mm-hmm. Now, you've bought some ingredients about what you can do and what you can make.
Yeah.
So perhaps we can go through that now, and you can show us what we can do.
Well, I can tell you what I'm going to do. One of the recipes that I've found is called frugal dal, and it's really easy to make. I've got 2.5 cups of red lentils, and I've got 2 cups of brown rice. So that's the sort of foundation for it. Now the frugal dal is quite simple. You take a little bit of oil here and you cook an onion, and then I've got a bit of masala powder over here, just a little bit of spice to make it tasty, and a can of tomatoes. You cook that down for about 15 minutes. You grate the carrot, add it in, and add a little bit of salt.
Great.
And that's basically it. You boil your rice with some water, and that's your main lunch. Well, that's my main lunch and dinner meal for 5 days. And then for breakfast, that would be my porridge for 5 days. And I even went so far as to splurge and get a little bit of sugar so that it was sweet. Right. And I don't want to say my downfall, one of the things I love most in life is fresh fruit. And so I spent my last dollar on 3 kiwi fruits.
Correct.
And one of the things that I've done, which is a bit of a twist, Live Below the Line is a really great challenge because it's flexible. You make what you want to make of it. And if the idea is to walk a mile in someone else's shoes, different people interpret that different ways. I've heard of people taking the challenge and say, you know what? I'm not going to use my car this week because people in the developing world don't have cars, so they walk to work and they spend hours walking back and forth to work in addition to the food. For me, I care deeply about the environment that we live in, and so I've decided to go organic as well. So this is, I can tell you everything here that's organic: organic oats, organic lentils, organic brown rice, that's organic sugar, and organic onion, organic kiwi fruit, organic carrot. This is organic flour, actually. And I forgot to say that for snacks, the easiest snack you could possibly make is a little bit of flour, a little bit of oil, and a little bit of salt, and that makes a very basic cracker.
Wow.
Just to fill your tummy in between. Now, all of my food here together cost just under $11.25. I spent $11.19, so I've got 6 cents left over for a lolly or something if I break down on Thursday of the week.
Great. Now you've got the finished product for us. So.
I do.
Yeah.
And this is the finished product.
Wow.
A beautiful, frugal dal with brown rice.
Brilliant.
That's going to be my lunch and my dinner for 5 days.
I can guarantee it smells delicious. Can smell all those flavors coming through.
You got to try.
I suppose I should. Thank you all. It's lovely.
And there's still plenty of time for you to get involved. You can find out more details on www.livebelowtheline.com/NZ. Again, that website is livebelowtheline.com/NZ. And you'll find some great ideas there about how to plan your menus for that week. But just remember what it's all about. You only have $2.25 a day to spend. And that's all we have time for this week. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Ka kite, God bless you.